Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and I currently have a 2024 Forester, Outback, and Crosstrek lined up for you guys. They are all the limited trim level, and I want to show you a comparison between these different models to help you guys at home decide which Subaru SUV might be the best one for you. And huge thanks to Twin Falls Subaru for letting me borrow their SUVs for the day. They had this fantastic lineup. It's honestly too nice to not film for you guys. I actually did a wilderness comparison of these three vehicles maybe about a half year ago, and then I also have individual, more specific, objective reviews of all of these, where I share a lot of different impressions, driving impressions 0 to 60, and just all the specs and features that you guys might be interested in. So this is a little bit more of an impromptu style review of all of these. The Crosstrek was updated for 2024. This is the 4th generation. The Outback, it's likely going to change after next year for the 2026 model year because the legacy we've already been told is disappearing after 2025. So we have the 2024 Outback, and then we'll have one more year of this 6th generation. And then this is the Forester. It's the 5th generation, and the 6th gens are going to show up in about a month. So if you want one of these, if you want what might be the best non-turbo Forester ever designed, ever built, this is your last chance. This is also the last Forester to be built in Japan because the new ones are going to be built in Indiana, just like a lot of the other Subarus. This is built in America. This, if it has a 2.5 liter boxer, it's also built in America. If it has the 2 liter like the base or the premium, those ones are still built in Japan and then they're imported to the United States. So there's various reasons why you may prefer one or the other, and they also have a lot of similar size and characteristics and capability. And because they're all on the Subaru global platform, there's a lot that they all offer, and there's a lot that we need to talk about. And if you guys like what you see in this video, please comment below. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Like this video, it helps it get shared. It also helps YouTube know that you want to watch more stuff like this. And subscribe if you haven't already. Again, I have in-depth reviews of basically every trim level of the last couple years of the Subarus, and I own an Outback Wilderness myself, so I'm actually a Subaru owner. But let's start with the engines. Under the hood, the Crosstrek, this is a limited. So is the rest of them. So this one has the 2.5 liter boxer. It makes 182 horsepower and about 176 foot-pound-feet of torque. Boxer engines are really well designed. You have induction through the grille, the air box, the filter, the throttle body, the upper intake runners, and then everything maintenanceable other than spark plugs is easy to get to. You have the alternator, oil dipstick, oil fill, oil filter, battery, fuse box, another fuse box over here, and all of your other reservoirs. So it's basically a very global platform, easy to work on, and a lot of universal parts that usually repairs are not too expensive on these. But this limited is actually a limited XT, so it's the same engine from my Outback Wilderness. It makes 260 horsepower. That's the top mount intercooler. It doesn't have a hood scoop on the outside anymore. It has induction through the grille though, through the internal hood scoop under the hood. And this makes a lot more torque, 277. But it peaks out at 2,000 RPM. So while this makes 277 torque at 2,000 RPM, the Forester and the 2.5 liter Crosstrek probably only make like 100 of their torque at 2,000 RPM. So around town, this is way punchier, way faster. And in my own personal GPS testing, turbo Outbacks usually run a 6-second something 0 to 60, whereas the naturally aspirated 2.5 liters, they can be as bad as about 11 seconds in hot summer heat, or as good as about 9 seconds on the coldest of winter days in my element, which is about 3,600 feet of altitude. And then this is the Forester. It's a little bit more expensive than the Crosstrek, so with that price, you actually get an engine cover, and it looks really good. But otherwise, you'll notice it's the exact same setup. Fuse box, battery, reservoirs, alternator, and everything you'd expect. Also, you'll notice that because the Forester is a little bit bigger than the Crosstrek, it fits in here a little bit more nicely. There's a little bit more room to work on it. And then these are all connected to a CVT because none of these are offered with a traditional automatic or a 6-speed manual like the BRZ or the WRX. So you'll notice the Crosstrek, it is a little bit tighter in here than is on the Forester. And the Outback, there's a little bit of room to work on. This actually has a Garrett turbocharger, but the turbocharger is located at about this position underneath the very bottom of the engine, so it's hidden away and you have to drop any skid plates to get to it. And then because these Subarus all share the same global platform and mechanical all-wheel drive, which is honestly about the best in the business, especially for this economy class of crossover, where these are all unibody, they all cost under $40,000 and they all have a lot of safety features and a lot of practicality. And Subarus in general, especially, you know, the hatchbacks, the mini wagons, the crossovers, basically, they just make life easier. And there's a reason why I've owned a couple Subarus now and why I still have one of those as my daily driver. But there is really a lot to share with these. I'm going to show you some underbody footage right here. They mostly have a 390 final drive ratio, so they put the power down pretty well for only having about 180 horsepower in the naturally aspirated configurations. And if you are going to shop a company or a dealership like Kunfal Subaru, you know you're going to get under MSRP on everything. So this is a 2024. It's over $1,500 off, so probably pretty close to invoice. Even the Outback, it's almost $2,500 off, so under $40,000, even though the MSRP is $42,000. And then the Forester, which these are getting harder to find because they are no longer assembled now. The 25s are starting to be produced, and they should be showing up in the next month or so. So I can't wait to have reviews of every trim level for you guys. But it's $37,000. There's only one trim level higher than these ones, and that's the touring equivalent. But even if we look at the window sticker, Subaru really focuses a lot on safety. It's even the first category on their vehicles. And when I review a lot of other cars like Fords and other stuff, they really don't put much emphasis on safety. They're not top safety pick pluses like this in a lot of cases. And honestly, sometimes they have kind of silly standard safety features that they mention, like about like seatbelt latches and stuff that really isn't that applicable. Whereas these have eyesight, adaptive cruise, blind spot monitoring, just a whole lot of stuff. You'll notice a lot of these stickers look the same. Usually the turbos get in the 20s for city and highway. The non-turbos get upper 20s city, low 30s highway. And they're all top safety pick pluses, 5-star crash test rated overall. And they all have a whole lot of safety features. Usually Twinfall Subaru also doesn't load them out with a lot of ridiculous nonsense, parts and add-ons like other dealerships sometimes do. So there's a real good reason to maybe travel if you are going to buy one of these. You might be able to get a few grand off and not have to pay any silly markups. Even this one, it basically just has the same stuff I have on my Outback Wilderness. The home link, the compass, that's the auto dimming mirrors. Those are actually really useful. But because these vehicles are very similar in specs, the Crosstrek and the Forester, they're both about 15 feet long. The Outback is 16 feet long. Most of the Subarus are basically 6 feet wide and 5 feet tall. That's about what I round them up to, and I tell you guys my formal reviews. And then they all weigh in the 3,000 pound range. So the Forester is about 3,600 pounds. The Outback, depending on the turbo or non-turbo, it's 3,600 to 3,900 pounds. And then the Crosstrek is a little bit less than the Forester in the lower mid 3,000 ballpark. They all have roof rails. Some of them are extendable like this, where you can actually do a crossbar so you don't have to buy a heavy-duty rail or crossbars. But the Forester and the Crosstrek, which is based off of the Impreza, they're just solid-mounted rails, and they can support a lot of weight. A lot of them are rated for 700 pounds, especially in the wilderness trim levels. And you'll notice that the Forester has the huge, well, I guess it's a small pano moonroof, but huge regular sunroof compared to what these are, which these are both based off of, an Impreza sedan and a Legacy sedan. So they just have the small regular ones. But with that said, let's hop in each of them. I'll quickly show you around. I'll show you the cargo area, what they have for a spare tire, and then we'll wrap up this video. So starting with the Crosstrek, you'll notice for 24, there's a little bit of cladding added onto it, a little bit of functional aero, and it does have a Falcon tire. The wheel, it's kind of that common mixed aluminum black design right now. But if we open up the door panel, it's basic Crosstrek materials, really nice soft touch, and it's actually wide enough to enjoy Harman Kardon speakers. And then this is the sticker. So it's a 225 55 18. It has a temporary spare. The payload capacity on this one is 900 pounds, if you guys can see that. But otherwise, being the Limited, having actual leather power seats and they're heated, it actually is a really nice setup. Rubberized pedals, cloth floor mats, fuse box right there, hood release, knee airbag. This thing is loaded with safety. So when you sit inside of it and you fire it up with the push button start, the needles dance, Subaru emblem appears, and honestly, leather wrapped. It's not heated on this one, but it is really nice. And it has the big 11.6-inch screen, which I really need to update mine on my Outback. I've purposely been trying to avoid it, but I think this weekend I finally will do that. So the newer screens, they're better. You still have to turn off auto start stop. You have auto vehicle hold, which is pretty cool. You can get into a few of your other features and access, X mode and things from there. Otherwise, the backup camera on these, it's not fantastic. It only takes up about a third of the screen, but it's pretty cool, and you can get into X mode stage 1 and 2 from there. Otherwise, wireless charging, you have some plugins, electronic parking brake, no front-facing camera. Even on the Wilderness, it doesn't have that. Heated seats, a 12-volt old CD tray, because Subaru didn't redesign the center console very well when they did this new third generation. And then you actually have a really big center console. Otherwise, LED lighting, auto-dimming mirrors, you have home link settings. You have a slide extension on this because it does not slide off. And then you have LED lighting in there, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, this is your sunroof. And overall, it's a nice place to be. It feels comfy, cozy, and there's a lot of room to drive around and enjoy yourself without feeling claustrophobic. In fact, I used to own a Crosstrek 2019 Premium, so I feel right at home in one of these. But even if you're going to sit in the back of the Crosstrek, it's actually designed for adults, and it's way bigger than something like a Mazda CX-30, although it's not as sporty feeling or driving as one of those. I'm 5'11", and I sit back here just fine. I have a lot of room in front of my knees and probably less than 1 inch above my head. No, map pocket there, so the backseat driver sits on the passenger side with some plugins, and you actually have a center armrest and some cup holders on this. So overall, it's a pretty nice place to be, and overall, for 5'11", almost 6 foot, it's really not that claustrophobic. I just wouldn't want to be the middle person sitting right here. And then the rear of the Crosstrek, even with this redesign and all LED lights everywhere, it's actually really cool. And it's still not a power liftgate, so you're going to have to do it manually, but the shocks do a really good job, so you don't have to work very hard. Back here, it's about 21 cubic feet of room. When you drop the seats, you have about 55, and they lay flat enough that you can car camp. You can also get aftermarket mattresses to put back here and have a really good time. Although if you're over 6 feet, I would not want to car camp in here. I don't think you're going to wake up feeling very well. But you do have some tie-down spots. They're lightweight. I wouldn't really load them down too much. You have a dog bowl right there. You have an incandescent light, Crosstrek all-weather mat as part of this package. And then you have your temporary spare tire down there with all your tire changing tools, your eye bolt hole, and your scissor jack. So really, it's not too bad. And then it's pretty easy to reach up here and to lower it back down. And if we're going to look at the Outback next, just know that these graphics, that's an optional package. You don't have to buy that as standard. Although I know some people really like that and some other options that Subaru offers. But getting inside of it, you'll notice that there's chrome kind of lining this Touring XT. For 40 grand, you actually get a lot of upscale features. Door panel looks really nice. It is slightly bigger than the Crosstrek. You also have memory seats, leather everywhere. This one might even have ventilation, but we'll see when we fire it up. Otherwise, that's reserved for the Touring trim level. And very similar Subaru characteristics and design. This one, payload 900 pounds as well. And it's a 225/60/18 with a temporary spare tire right there. And then sitting inside here, it has the driver mitigation system. So we're going to fire it right up. You'll notice basically it's just the bigger version of the Crosstrek with a way more powerful engine. We're going to turn off the ventilation. I'm sure you guys can hear that. And the screen is the same. That's the mitigation system bar right there. But visibility is fantastic. The windows are huge, although not as big as the Foresters. Good visibility, mirror or window right there, which a lot of other vehicles don't offer. Grab bar. You have the moonroof right there. Basically, it's fairly small. It's basically just from the sedan. Leather wrapped wheel. This one is heated. You do have paddle shifters on the back. And overall, it's even more spacious than the Crosstrek. You can have a really good time. No forward-facing camera, a slightly different center console display and setup. This one does not have the wireless charger, which I personally paid and removed it from mine because I didn't like it, and thankfully it was an easy thing to swap in or out. Some giant cup holders so you can fit your huge Stanley cups if that's what you're into. And then you have a 2-stage center console with a 12-volt in there. There's also a 12-volt in the glove box, and then you have upper storage, and you have side transmission tunnel storage on this as well, which I do think is pretty cool. Otherwise, you have all the fancy features there. You have the sunglass holder, you have some LED lighting up top, and then the controls for the power moonroof, because I didn't show that earlier. This one has incandescent lighting on this package, but it does slide, which is a pretty cool feature. And with that said, let's turn it off and hop in the back. And then back here, it's just as impressive as the front. Huge door panel. The seat is currently down so that you can see that these fit basically flat, so you can even more easily car camp in here with about an extra foot compared to what you get in the Crosstrek. And then the seats are pretty lightweight. The leather on this Limited is actually really good. And then sitting behind myself at 5'11", I'm having a pretty good time. I can actually recline the seats quite a bit. So you could really be probably 6.5 feet tall and probably still manage back here. That much room in front of my knees, double map pocket, and the pamphlets. You even have heated seats, ventilation on this one. And then back here, you get a slightly different view of what it looks like for all your cargo capacity. So if you're road tripping, have a cooler sit right here. If you have a blow-up canoe, put that back here with the all-weather mat. You can seriously do so much stuff with your Subaru. It's not even funny. So let's come around and I'll show you the hatch. Back here, it's actually pretty cool. With this graphics package, it's actually specific to Twin Falls. You have the Prime Bridge and a base jumper. And then this is a power liftgate. It does a pretty good job. It's fairly quick, and it's faster than some of the competition when I've had comparison videos that I've had them each go off at the same time. But it is fairly high. It's maybe not going to fit in an old garage from your 1940s house, but it's going to fit in a lot of modern garages. And then back here, all-weather mats. This one is still wrapped up. You can actually fit the privacy shade underneath. It has the Harman Kardon speaker. You have the controls to drop the seats on the Outback because it's just a little bit too far to reach for most people, unless your arms are unusually long. And then back here, you have the tools. You have some foam. You have the slot for that shade to hide. And then you have the spare tire down here with even more storage. So what are you guys going to hide down there? Definitely comment that below. Otherwise, it's easy to lower and lock or just to lower. And then finally, we have the Forester, the last year of the 5th generation. And in my opinion, it's kind of like the 2024 Toyota 4Runner, where it's the last year of something special, something that feels very familiar and like an old school vehicle. The 4Runner is obviously a body-on-frame truck. This is obviously a crossover unibody vehicle, but it has huge windows. It has a compact size and shape for being only about 15 feet long. I forgot to mention that back here in the Outback, you have about 10 more cubic feet, or actually 12 more than you do in the Crosstrek. And then when the seats are down, you have in the mid-70s. So 12 more cubic feet than that behind the second row, and about 20 more when the seats are all down in the back. So for an extra foot of length, you really gain a lot more practical room, roughly 40-50% more, practically speaking, because you're not going to, lift it up to the ceiling. You're not going to have visibility back there then. But when you get inside of the Forester, huge windows, again, as I mentioned, basically the tallest vertically of any modern vehicle that I've driven. Heck, even from this camera angle, it looks like it's almost half the door, but it still has enough structure and stability that this is a top safety pick. You have a slightly thinner armrest, but a slightly longer handle. Kind of interesting design language. All of your controls, power buttons, Harman Kardon speakers, because again, it's a limited. Power seats, they're heated, and honestly, they look really good. All of these Subaru seats, even the cloth and the StarTech's, very, very comfortable. And there's really not that much new or surprising from this angle. So let's hop inside and I'll show you what looks different. Sitting inside here, we'll fire it right up. I'm actually going to move my seat back a little bit so I can get a better camera angle for you guys. And the needles dance, everything pops to life. You actually have physical knobs to control your HVAC. This is going away next year. That is a shame. People want these. They don't want a giant screen, but I'm going to try to stay positive in this video. So we'll turn that off for sound reduction. Heated steering wheel. Crazy good visibility. Check that out. Look at how close to this vehicle. It's probably about 3 feet away, and I can see that far down. Also, it slopes down on the hood, so you have really good visibility. Because it's not very long, you can see right through the center of the vehicle. And my backpack, which of course it's going to be featured in this video. It's right there. Otherwise, the main changes are on this package, you have the 8-inch screen. Other Foresters, the low, like the base, had a 6.5-inch screen. There's no more CD player. That disappeared for 2024. Hazard lights, some plugins down there. Non-wireless charger. The backup camera takes up the whole screen, and it's at least the clarity of the big 11.6-inch screen, which I like. You have piano black. You have your X mode buttons here versus having to operate that through the screen, which again, I like. That's kind of the theme of the Forester. There's a lot of things I like. Heated seats, high and low. Electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold. You still have a CD tray because Subaru, they took away the CD player. They redesigned the front-facing infotainment screen, but they didn't, redesign the plastic center console. And then you have a 12-volt right there. Otherwise, up top, you have sunshades. You have your controls for the power and moonroof. And this is another reason to like the Forester. Look at how big that thing is. I have to really reach back pretty far to get to it. But unfortunately, you don't have the sliding part. You only have the extension and LED lighting on this one. So overall, there's a lot to like up here. And it feels like everything's lower. It feels like you have a little bit more room for only being 15 feet long. So let's hop in the back and see what it's like back there. The back of this gray Forester, the door panel, pretty big. The back seats, they're again leather. There's a lot of room, a lot of leg room, as you can see. And then these actually have a strap so you can recline them just like the Outback, which is really cool. You still have the same mat pocket back here, the double plus the pamphlets. No heated seats though. You have to get probably a touring for that because there's a blank button. So we know it's offered. And then you have a center armrest with some cup holders. Pretty firm. And overall, the sunroof comes almost to my head. I have maybe 1 inch, if that, above my head. It's basically the same as the Crosstrek. And maybe the Outback's worth of room in front of my knees. But remember, I did move the seat back slightly compared to the other side, which actually on camera, that one's reclined further. So that's kind of funny. But anyways, lots of room back here. Feels pretty good. Let me show you the hatch. Back here, you'll notice that the Forester rear end, it is a little bit wider, especially at the top, compared to something like the Outback, where the roofline just looks that much lower, even though it's a couple inches difference. It just looks a lot more square, a lot more boxy on this one. It does have a power liftgate back here. You can also operate all this from the controller. You can also have, heated remote start. heated seats, remote start, do all the things, control your HVAC system from the infotainment screen on these ones if you pay for the My Subaru app. I'm not sure if you can do all of that stuff on the Forester where it has physical knobs and buttons, but back here you have actually similar room to the Outback. It's in the 29-30 cubic feet ballpark, and then when you drop the seats, which you do have a little button for that, if the seat belts didn't do such a darn good job of holding them there, you actually have in the 70 cubic foot range. So there still is a lot of room. Harman Kardon speaker, though, is on this side this time. You have another switch, a few tie downs throughout. And I don't see any incandescent lighting, no dog bowl like the Crosstrek has, but there's a little bit of room on that side behind the fender. If you don't have the speaker, you'll have more room on that side too. And then a huge storage compartment. Again, what are you guys hiding down below? You can put the privacy shade right there if you want to. And then when you lift up the foam, you have all your tire changing tools down here. So it's a spare tire. Only the Wilderness version of this and this has a full-size spare. The Crosstrek Wilderness has a temporary spare, which is a shame. Otherwise, the top hatch, it opens pretty good, about the same as the Outback. So it is, probably half a foot taller than my head, and it's easy to lower. It's easy to lower and lock if you want. And with all of that said, shown, and talked about, this was a very impromptu review video. Definitely was not one of my more structured, more specific, objective reviews of any specific trim level of any specific model, but this is just for fun. I basically saw this lineup and thought that this would be a good opportunity to show you guys the same trim level of the 3 different models, which a lot of people can't decide between, because the footprint of the Crosstrek and the Forester is about the same. The Outback's a foot longer, but the storage compartment and storage volume of these two is about the same. Whereas the Crosstrek, it's a little bit cheaper, it's a little bit smaller, and it might do better for a smaller family or a city dweller. There's a lot to like, there's a lot to talk about, and all of these Subarus are fantastic. I've owned one of each of these. Chances are I'll probably have a Forester picked up here pretty soon. Can't decide if it's going to be a 24 or 25, but that's going to be its own video coming soon, or maybe it's already posted at this point. You probably know before I do, because I don't know what I'm going to post first. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it at all, if you got anything out of it, please consider liking this video. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. What do you own? What do you want to own? And how has your experience been with it? And subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, I wish you the best. I hope you take care. See ya.